there. Let's now bring in political strategist Mutinda Kavemba to just very quickly put some perspectives on these political issues. Mutinda, good afternoon. Thank you for joining us here. A lot being said by the NASA leadership there. A lot of allegations against the CS, Dr. Fred Matiang'i. NASA claiming some of their leaders are being targeted unfairly by the police. We have seen what's happening with businessman Jimmy Wanjigi, who has been associated with the opposition coalition. What's your take on all this?
The most important thing is that there is, we are reinforcing the rule of law in this country. And that is why it is not excusable for anybody to try and use extra constitutional means to achieve whatever aims and goals they have. Because the CS Matiang'i gave orders, and of course there were reasons and justifications behind what he did. And the NASA has gone to court, and it has gotten a ruling in their favor. It is not the first time they are doing that. And during the August 8 elections, again, they were not satisfied with how the elections were conducted, and they went to the Supreme Court. And again, the Supreme Court ruled in their favor. As regards Jimmy Wanjigi, I think it is now public knowledge that there is a search warrant, and the search warrant was issued by a magistrate's court. Now that is the impressive part of what is happening, that everybody is trying to do whatever they have to do within the realms of the rule of law. Now, my concern is about those who are now doing things outside the realm of the rule of law. That is probably what the main concern with most Kenyans. And you've heard the CEO, Magaya, just mentioned that there will be no elections on the 26th. I wish they were quoting whatever article they are relying on, or whatever section of the Kenyan law they are relying on, like they are doing when they are talking about the demonstrations. It's clear that is Article 37. But there are things they are talking about that they are not supporting using the Constitution or the law. And that is where the main focus is, because this is really about the elections. And we are where we are because of a step that they took going to court. So far, the court has repeatedly demonstrated its ability to rule against positions held by the state,
right,
including the declaration of the incumbent as the winner of the 8th August election, which was again nullified. So you wonder why, at what point do they not trust the courts, and at what point do they feel that they should go to the courts? And that is where some of us feel that there is an element of dishonesty, because there are matters that, when we had a referendum on the 4th of August, that passed the 2010 Constitution, and the promulgation on the 27th of August. So one of the reasons that we went to the great, and you know that Katiba had been a culmination of a very long process, actually. Probably it was what we can call, that was the maturity of the second liberation, that we felt that now the struggle for the second liberation had been won by the passage of, and you know what that means, it
yes,
had been dragging on. One of the reasons why we did that is because we wanted to establish constitutionalism and the rule of law. And there are mechanisms to take care of all these things. So why one would want to go outside them to create a crisis, and probably with the intention of being a beneficiary
right,
at the end of it all, and at what cost? Because you've seen what the damage that this is, the coalition between the people, because we have very many rights. Some of those rights we have to strike a balance, because even as you're rioting, you're not allowed to threaten people who are not part of that.
right.
You're not allowed to mess with their property. The police have a duty to secure all of us, and it's really not an easy balance. Some of these things are easier said than done. When you're out there in the field,
yes,
facing some of these situations, it's really
interesting questions there, Mutinda. What is your prediction? Because NASA insists that there will be no elections on the 26th of this month. That is the next 8 days. The IEBC is preparing for the elections. Jubilee are preparing for the elections. For the election, we have Ekuru Aukot also on the ballots. The country seems to be heading in two different directions. Vis-a-vis, the political support that both sides of the political divide have. What is your prediction? What is going to happen on the 26th?
Now, what looks set to happen is that we are bordering on lawlessness. I don't know whether you've authenticated some of the reports that we've seen that some of the training of the presiding officers have been stopped in some of the regions. We are waiting for mainstream media to confirm some of this, whether it's true or not. But clearly, some of those actions that are taking place are an indication, because that by itself would be breaking the law, because the Election Offences Act is very clear on what is legal and what is not legal. You denying anybody their right to go and participate in an election is unlawful. And so some of these calls are actually incitement. They are veiled incitement, because when leaders are repeating that there will be no election, and they are not saying that they are boycotting, they are not telling their people not to go out and vote. It's like they are almost indirectly telling their people to ensure that no voting takes place. Now, that would be an illegality. There is no article that really supports such an action. Like, we have repeatedly said that in this country, voting is not compulsory. So there would be no problem with anybody not going to vote. But there would be a very big problem with somebody deciding not to allow the electoral process to take place. And from what I have heard severally, and even now, just from the press conference that you've aired, is that these demonstrations are going to go on up to the 26th. That simply means that there is a strategy to ensure that there is no conducive environment to conduct elections in certain areas of this country. And that's why I'm saying now that will border on illegality, because nobody has a right to interfere with a process that is supported by the Constitution and by a court ruling, and not just any other court, but the Supreme Court ruling. I'm actually very keen to see whether NASA will go to court to try and argue out their case about this election, yet they're in defiance of the same court ruling. And it's important to note that the ruling was being given after they had petitioned the court. So we are not saying that, and it's important for these things to come out clearly. Nobody is saying that they do not have concerns, and nobody is trying to say that their concerns are not legitimate. But the means they are using are what is illegitimate. Because the constitutional framework provides for a way of dealing with all these situations. I have again said, and not only me, the Supreme Court, none other than the Chief Justice himself, publicly declared that in case this election that they have ordered a repeat is not conducted as per the Constitution and the law, they will not hesitate to nullify it. If I was to be asked, and if we are to promote the rule of law, that is the direction we should have taken. So that if you have issues that you're not satisfied with, you just take note of them, we go for the election, and you build your case like they did last time. I don't know why.
Thank you, Mutinda. Let's take a quick commercial break. When we return, we'll just get your thoughts on this developing story. IEBC Chair Wafula Chebukati will not be allowed to amend the election results. We'll we'll pick your thoughts, pick your mind on that when we come back. Many thanks for staying with us. This is News Desk.